Good morning, guys. It is 5:59 a.m. September 25th, 2017. A couple things to watch. We got some good news about Maria overnight. It has dropped to a Category 1 storm. We are at 80-mile-per-hour sustained winds with a pressure of 957, currently moving north at 7 miles an hour. We do have some watches and warnings still on for areas of the Outer Banks, and there's even an evacuation, so guys, even though we're dealing with a Cat 1 storm right now, Cat 1 storm is no joke for coasts. We need to keep an eye on it. Let's hope it weakens to a tropical storm, maybe even a tropical depression before any sort of possible landfall, if we even see a landfall. Regardless, the Outer Banks are going to feel effects from this storm just based on the angle and how fast it's moving. There's no doubt about that. It's going to get there before the jet stream wall does. It might be a short time. It might be a day or two. So tropical storm on the coast is going to cause a lot of issues, even though it's a tropical storm, guys. We're not dealing with just hurricanes here. Tropical storms, nor'easters, that's why they make it to the news. They're important to watch, so we're going to watch them. We also have Lee here, which is actually stronger than Maria now, believe it or not. I still don't think Lee is an issue as of right now. The path does show it coming a little bit south into this area before that front from the jet stream picks up Maria and Lee at the same time. But then, guys, our friends over in Ireland, in Spain, Portugal, this entire area, we've got France, United Kingdom, not so much Dublin on the backside of Ireland, but guys, all these areas here, Maria and Lee get picked up by the jet stream and just whipped right into this area. So now these guys got to watch for all this stuff, and fast moving too. These storms, once they get picked up by the jet stream, they're moving incredibly quick. So the winds are going to be pretty nuts here. So we'll take a look at that too. Absolutely, we got the Google Earth to check it out, specific areas. But once again, so we have Lee and Maria currently in the Atlantic. And then in the Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Pilar, which is currently affecting areas of Mexico. They just are not getting a break either between the earthquakes and the tropical storms, hurricanes, and even volcanoes, guys. There's a volcano or two, or maybe three, going off in Mexico as we speak. It's a pressure release mechanism, basically. It's just like earthquakes, guys. Volcanoes give off pressure. Sometimes they are in place of earthquakes. So a volcano will go off, and that will actually save an area from a lot of pressure. It'll release some of the pressure, downgrading their earthquake or seismic activity. Sometimes not. Sometimes you get both. You get volcanic eruptions and also earthquakes in the same area. But regardless, Mexico is going through a lot right now. They also have another storm popping up that's worth watching. 30% chance of cyclone formation in the next, 48 hours. So, and then it's still 30 over 5 days. That might develop, it might not. They did say the Pacific is going to get more active now because it's the warmer of the two regions. But guys, we still have until November 30th to really put this season away. So we will be watching with all this stuff going on this season. I would not be surprised to see more storms coming off of Africa. The second they do, I'm going to let you know. So we're moving on here. Really quick, here are your warnings and watches for Maria. It looks like this goes as far inland, at least for a watch, as Jacksonville. That's because of these water inlets. They're worried about storm surge, and the wave heights are pretty high, guys. They're showing a 9-10 foot waves around the Outer Banks area. So just think of that water going into the bay here and then flooding these channels, and that's why you're getting these warnings in these areas. Even parts of, I saw Greenville, which is very far inland, probably around this area, was under a watch. I don't know why they don't have it highlighted here. But again, just all these little islands and stuff like that where you see the red, those are warnings, so you'll likely get the tropical storm conditions, storm surge a couple foot, and that's what they're worried about. They're worried about this water coming into these channels, and that's why these inner areas inland are under the watches now. Yesterday, where Kill Devil Hill is, Hatters, Morehead City, this was all yellow stuff, so it was under a watch, and now it's under a warning. So just got to keep an eye on it. It's because we are dealing with a Cat 1 storm. If Maria was a Cat 2 storm still, we'd be looking at hurricane warnings in these areas. So they are expecting it to die down a little more. I think that will happen. Again, it's possible it will not. We still might have a landfall deal with a Cat 1 storm, guys, because the jet stream is still, it's just not moving as quick as we want it to move. And at the looks of it right now, it does look like it's going to get pretty close, so we just have to wait and see. But again, these are your current watches and warnings. So anyone in these areas, guys, just be aware of what's going on here. Keep on that local news, and you won't be caught off guard by this thing if it decides to make a turn. Alright, here is our current tropical tidbits models. This is for the nav gen. And basically we got Lee sitting out here, stationary, go figure, just sitting there. And then we have Maria here. So we're waiting to see what this skim is going to be like, or if we even have a landfall. We still might have landfall, guys. It all depends on that jet stream. And then just take a look at where this weather's going afterwards. Spain, Portugal, areas of Ireland up here, all these areas. Look at this weather they're going to be getting now. Just unfortunate for them. It all has to do with the jet stream, guys. The jet stream is picking these storms up and whipping them right into this area. So again, that's why we're waiting for that front wall to come across. We're still dealing with a big heat wave in the northeast. It's going to be hot again today, record-breaking hot. You could see that front wall basically approaching Chicago today, just to give you an idea of where it is now. So we're just waiting for it to meet up with Maria and get her out of here already. But we may still have a landfall, and that's why they're still giving out these warnings and watches in the Outer Banks areas and some evacuations, guys. That's why we're posting them, and the storm's not gone yet, so we can't not cover it and just call it a no-show. We're dealing with a Category 1 storm. Still very important, at least in my opinion it is. Here is the European model. We got Lee out here. Lee gets picked up a lot quicker. These are the last couple frames of it. That's why it's moving so quick. You got Jose disappearing. Lee out here. There's our high pressure. And then we still got that skim deal. If you notice, Maria, is expanding. The wind field expands when they hit cooler waters. That doesn't mean it's getting stronger. It just means the wind field is wider. And again, that's adding to those warnings and watches in the Outer Banks. But again, we see it getting a little bit further than the Outer Banks now in the models before the jet stream picks it up. And that's why I still had areas like near the Chesapeake Bay and South New Jersey in the mix, because we didn't know how far north Maria would go. And we still don't. We need to wait for the jet stream to get here. The jet stream is actually pulling up closer to Canada, which is why Maria is allowed to stay up north this long. According to the charts, Maria should have already been being pulled out to sea, and we're not seeing that yet because the jet stream has slowed down so much. And finally, for tropical tidbits, here is the GFS model. Look at that thing. That's crazy. That's a big, big system. But we got Lee here sitting still once again, and then we have Maria. And the GFS has Maria getting very, very close to the Outer Banks, and then even near Virginia Beach and Chesapeake Bay. Look how close the GFS has this to Chesapeake Bay. So don't be surprised, guys, if we start getting warnings and watches in Chesapeake Bay, possibly even as south as South New Jersey. That could change in 24 hours, guys, that could be. And here are the current spaghetti plots for Maria in its remaining trip up the East Coast. You can see our direction right now is straight up. If it were not to be influenced by the jet stream, it would go straight up into Long Island right now. Don't worry about that, Long Island. That's probably not going to happen. We do have the jet stream wall making its way west to east across the U.S. So eventually we are going to have this right-hand turn, or at least a little bit of a bow turn, kind of like this black line you see here. That's also possible. The farther Maria gets north, the more you're going to see this bend out and not be so much of a jagged edge. That's when the storm was beelining right towards the Outer Banks, and then the jet stream was going to meet it at an angle and then shoot it to the right. So you might see this little bit of a bend here going on shortly. Again, that's why we're watching it, to see how far north it's going to get. You might see areas of Virginia Beach getting put under watches, Chesapeake Bay. And even, like I just said, guys, South New Jersey might be under watch soon. So again, that's why it's important to watch these storms. We need that front wall to get here quicker. We're going to take a look at that right now. You can see the wall here. It's actually connecting and pulling moisture out of Tropical Storm Pilar here in Mexico. Just to give you an idea of the vastness of these front walls, guys. This jet stream dips down all the way through Mexico. You can't see the U here. We've been talking about this. That's because of the dry air in Southern California and the Baja region. It is still a force, though, and you can actually see it connecting to Pilar. So that's pretty interesting to see. You can see the bands of Maria here going through South Carolina and Georgia. They probably have significant cloud cover in these areas here because of this. And we do have a big system moving across Texas we talked about yesterday. A lot of rain. I'm sure it's as far east as Dallas now. Heading towards the Houston area, guys. Houston might get some rain from this. The last thing they need as well. But again, here is Maria here. You can see in some of the satellite images, the west side of Maria is a little bit breaking up. There is some shear winds coming off the east coast of the U.S., which is helping that. And that's why we're still keeping an eye on the storm, guys. We just need to see where it's going to go and how close it's going to get before that front wall shows up. Here is another version of those showing a little bit more of its path once it gets pulled out into the ocean. And then we're dealing with those areas that we showed of Spain, Ireland, etc., guys. Here is the little bit timeline we have left for Maria. You can see the blue there are the warnings and the yellow are the watches. So we're still dealing with this thing probably through Thursday. We're going to be dealing with effects from it. Once again, here is Pilar, 40 miles per hour currently. Probably will die out once it hits land, but it was cool to see it interacting with the jet stream front. And then again, we have this cyclone formation chance of 30% over 48 hours. Here is our current wind map, so we can get an eye of Lee. You can see Lee just, as it starts spinning here, it gets stuck. It's stuck between all these different pressures that we're always talking about. The Bermuda Atlantic pressure. There is a pressure coming down on the west coast of Africa, which is kind of pushing Lee into this area here where it's getting stuck. And then Maria is on the left side of a pressure bubble here that's over Bermuda. It's the Bermuda Atlantic. And then that's why Lee is projected to possibly move a little south and then get picked up by that front. So that's what we want to see happen. We don't want Lee to get any further south because then it gets put right back into this westward belt that we deal with all the time with these hurricanes. And guys, just to give you something to look out for, there is a group of storms coming off, I just noticed, off of West Africa. So again, just because you don't see it on the news doesn't mean it's not forming. They usually don't talk about this stuff until they turn into tropical depressions, but these are the telltale signs of a tropical depression, these dark colors here. So I'm going to continue to watch that. I just noticed that actually. And last but not least, here are the spaghetti plots for Lee. Its current trajectory, like I said, is a little bit southeast, so we don't want it to do any more of that. We do want it to start wrapping towards the west and then get picked up by the front and then pulled out in this direction. Of course, we don't want any weather going to our neighbors over here in this area, but it's looking like that's what's going to happen. But just to give the U.S. a break, we need this storm to do its little spin, and we need that wall that we're waiting for Maria to get picked up by to also pick up Lee and take it in the opposite direction of where we are. Here is a timeline for Lee currently. Right now we are at the 5 a.m. Monday mark right around here. So it is going to move a little to the west towards the U.S., not close at all. We're not even getting near Bermuda, but then it gets picked up by that front wall, makes a big turn, and then way out into the ocean. So let's hope that's what we're dealing with. One more time, here is the satellite images of the continental U.S., parts of Mexico, and the Gulf. We do have a system here in the panhandle of Florida, probably causing some severe weather. And again, check out the front wall just connected to Pilar here. So that's why a lot of these areas are getting such crazy rain, especially Texas. This front wall, the part of the jet stream, is actually sucking moisture out of this storm Pilar and pulling it up towards the underside of Texas. So that is something to watch, guys. Just because these storms hit the coast, it doesn't mean they break up and disappear right away. We saw Irma out here for days and days and days, spinning around, causing all sorts of systems. So just this front line is pulling all this water into Texas, and that's why I mentioned all those high rain rates going on there currently. And so that's pretty much it for now, guys. That's our update. I will have another update around 1 or 2 o'clock as the storm gets closer to where our warning areas are. Those people need to be aware in North Carolina, the Outer Banks, and even Virginia Beach area because Maria is moving more north than they would like. And even though it's a weakening storm, it's still going to cause issues. And the only thing we have right now to wait for is this front wall, which is moving. It's moving nonetheless. You could see it moving across here. Across the middle of the U.S. now, but just the time it took from the west coast all the way to here, Maria moved almost twice the amount of space they had predicted. So again, guys, it's just another race against time. We are dealing with a weaker storm, but nonetheless have to watch it. All right, guys, I'm going to talk to you all very soon. I appreciate you sticking with me. Happy Monday.